Joining us now, he's also up for re-election on Tuesday, Congressman Rob Wittman from Virginia's 1st District. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Good morning, John. Great to be with you.
What are you seeing out there, Congressman? I know you've spent the past few days knocking on doors, talking to your voters, constituents, and canvassing. What do you feel? What have you heard?
Well, John, there's a high level of enthusiasm for Republicans. There's also a high level of frustration with what people see as a lack of leadership there across the spectrum, both in the House and the Senate and the executive branch. I think people want to see things get done, and they want folks in there that are going to stand up and make sure that we get those things done. I've spoken with folks about some of the challenges that are out there. People, want to see us in the House get these appropriations bills done. They don't like the idea that we go home in August. And I said, listen, I'm right there with them. We need to be staying there and getting things done. So they want leadership to see those things done. They want to see an end to Harry Reid's reign in the Senate. They want to see a Senate that will work with the House to get those appropriations bills done, to kind of force the issues, to make sure that there's a direction and there's an effort. They want to see the sequester set aside. They want to see good common sense elements of government take place, and they are very adamant about I think the issues that are important to Republicans, and that is reducing this deficit, reducing this debt, taking on issues of national security, not trying to balance the budget on the backs of our men and women in the military, securing our borders, getting this economy back on track by getting out of the way of businesses. I mean, it is palpable out there, and as I've knocked doors, I've only come across just a handful of folks, and these are, John, I'm not knocking on doors of folks that are solid Republicans. I'm knocking on the doors of independents and talking to them. And like I said, overwhelmingly, they want to see a change. They want to see us go in a different direction. They are not happy with where we are right now, and they want folks in there that are willing to lead, willing to do the difficult job of governing and moving this country in the right direction. So I am very optimistic about Republicans' chances come Election Day, especially here in Virginia. I think that the open seats that we have, I think we stand a great chance in winning those. Both we have great candidates there with Suzanne Schulte, with Barbara Comstock, with Micah Edmonds. I think all those races are going extraordinarily well. And also here with Ed Gillespie, I can tell you, I think that there's going to be some surprises election night as you hear the prognosticators talk about that. You hear them talk about New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire's one of those places where we'll see a surprise, but I think Virginia is too. Virginia, the results here, as you saw the other day, are within the margin of error. Mm-hmm. And I think the Virginia Senate race here is going to be one of those bellwether races that's going to tell the direction the nation is going in. And I can tell you from the doors I've knocked on, and I've knocked on this past week hundreds of doors, I firmly believe, hear, feel, and see folks wanting to move us in a different direction, wanting to give Republicans the chance to lead, and I believe that that's what will happen come tomorrow evening.
It's going to be interesting, Congressman. A lot of people saying, well, Republicans in the House might gain maybe 7 or 8 seats. I think you're going to pick up 10 to 12. If that happens and you've got that you hit that 245 mark, how does that change the House? Does anything change?
John, I think it. I think it does change some things. I think it provides the opportunity for us to really get out there and do some things. And when I say do some things, I'm talking about meaningful things. I'm talking about budget reform, getting in there and tackling the issues with Social Security and Medicare, and getting in there and addressing this sequester and really getting our military back on track and addressing the issue of securing our borders. I think that provides a great opportunities for us. With those numbers in the House, it allows us, I believe, to do those things. It allows us to, I think, to drive the agenda. With those numbers, it lets us drive the agenda, and then it lets us, in cooperation with a soon-to-be Republican Senate, I think get some substantive things done. And remember, too, with those numbers, John, it creates much more of a focus not only on the issues, but it creates much more of a pressure on the president to actually get some things done too. Now, I've had a lot of folks say, well, Rob, all he'll do is veto what the House and the Senate send him. I don't think it's that simple. I think with strong messages from the House, especially with those numbers as you speak of, John, I think it's a great opportunity for us to really put the issues on the table, to make the president make those tough decisions. And if he does decide to veto these efforts to balance the budget, and he has no alternative, then I think it really shows his position on things, and that is that he doesn't want to actually move on these issues. So I think it provides a great opportunity for the House to lead and to lead the nation.
Well, there's no doubt that with a Republican Congress, obviously the things that Harry Reid kept sitting on over and over and over, they have to get to the president's desk and he has to act on it. Let's get to his, I don't know if you call it a threat or a promise, but his statement that he is going to be probably pursuing some kind of executive order, Congressman Wittman, that would allow about maybe up to 10 million immigrants in the United States gain permanent legal status. That is not a popular position in the U.S. Two-thirds of people don't want it, cost jobs and other things. How would a Republican Senate be able to stop that?
Well, first of all, John, I think it's unconstitutional. I think he acts outside the power of the executive branch when he does that. But the House and Senate can act to essentially counter that order. Remember, it takes dollars to implement that order. We can stop funding of that particular order. We can also counter that with legislation that says, no, that this shall not happen. This is the way we are going to deal with folks that are here illegally, and legislatively counter that, both through budget language and also through direction that the House and Senate can take. So, and I believe strongly that, again, it is unconstitutional, that he's acting outside the purview of his power. You know, I think folks across the spectrum, I don't care where they are philosophically, ideologically, look at that and go, that's just not right. In fact, I was talking the other day, John, to some folks that were naturalized or are naturalized U.S. citizens, and they are adamant. They said, listen, the process here works. It does need some fine-tuning as far as the numbers of people that can apply for citizenship, the numbers that can apply to come here as guest workers, but that the process itself works, and the strongest advocates for it are those folks that have gone through the naturalization process, have taken the time and effort to do that. So, you know, I think we do them a disservice and really creates a situation of disrespect to those folks that have done it properly, and seeing that somehow others are allowed to short-circuit it. But I do believe that the House and the Senate have a number of opportunities to counter the president with this. And I do think, too, John, that we can, right after the election, I do think, too, that all of us need to speak out and send a loud message countering what the president may be thinking, to say, don't do this, it's unconstitutional. The House and the Senate will act to counter this if you so choose to do this, and then engage the American people. I think the most powerful opportunity we have is not only to tell what we'll do to counter it, but also to engage the American people and say, listen, if this is not what you want, communicate with the president's office. Let him know this is not what needs to happen. I think that groundswell of public opinion also is a great force to counter the president, in addition to what the House and Senate can do legislatively.
With Republican Congressman Rob Wittman from Virginia's 1st District, Republican, up for re-election on Tuesday. Okay, Congressman Wittman, on Friday we found out that Congressman Randy Forbes is running for House Armed Services Committee chairman. He's behind Mac Thornberry, who on paper would take that over for the retiring Chairman McKeon. How do you see that race, and are you for Forbes?
Well, I think Randy would make a spectacular chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. His record of leadership there, the things that he's done to really make sure that we address these tough issues with the sequester and getting the necessary resources for our men and women in the military, I think stands as a great example about leadership that's needed today. I think Randy would be fantastic. It's good to have a race. It's good to have an exchange of ideas there about what direction the House Armed Services Committee needs to go in. It's always tough to predict these races because it's done by the steering committee, which is a small group of individuals. But I know Randy is very active in talking to the members of the steering committee and the leadership there in making his case. And I think he has a tremendously powerful case to make to become the chairman. That doesn't take anything away from Mac Thornberry, who I also respect and I think is a great individual. And as Randy said, this really isn't an issue or a race of one person against another. It really is, I think, a race of a record and of efforts and of positions on interests in national defense. And I think Randy brings a tremendous set of abilities to the table in leadership. I think a great record of leadership there. So I think the race will be, about Randy's record, the things that he's done, and what he has accomplished through his time there on the House Armed Services Committee. So I look forward to seeing the outcome there. And as I said, I think Randy will be extraordinarily competitive in that race and would be a spectacular chairman of the House Armed Services Committee.
Now, Congressman, how does that work? Is that voted on by the full Republican caucus in the House when they reconvene in January? How does that work?
No, there's a steering committee, so there are members from the Republican caucus from each of the regions that are on a steering committee, as well as the Speaker, the Majority Leader, and the Majority Whip. So they get together and vote on who becomes the chairman, and then the chairmans put together their roster of who they believe should be the subcommittee chairman, and then those are also voted on by the steering committee. So it's all done by a group within the Republican caucus. So the only vote that goes before the entire caucus are for the three leadership positions. That's the Speaker, the Majority Leader, and the Majority Whip. The other positions, the committee chairman, are decided by the steering committee. And as I said, the three leaders, and then there's a member from each of the regions. The country's broken up into regions. Congressman Bob Goodlatte is our representative here from the Mid-Atlantic region.
Okay, so basically, how many people in the region? There are 4 or 5 or 6? How many of these regional people?
I think, John, that there are I believe that there are 9 or 10 regions throughout the United States.
All right, so you got maybe 13 people. We got 2 minutes, Congressman Wittman. Would you tell the voters of the 1st District why they should re-elect you back to Congress?
Absolutely. Well, John, I've worked very hard to make sure that we get Congress functioning back the way it needs to be, and that is to make sure it's there to get appropriations bills done, which I think are extraordinarily important. If we're going to address this deficit and debt, Congress has to do its work. That means that it has to stay there in August when bills are yet to be done. We also have to fix things like the sequester. We cannot balance the budget on the backs of our men and women in the military. We must secure our borders. That is not just an immigration issue, it's a national security issue. And we must also, I believe, fix the tax code to make sure we're encouraging people to invest. We also must pare down these regulations that are out there. The mass of regulations are just stifling businesses. We need to do that, and we need to be developing our own energy here on our own lands and off our own shores to make sure we have energy independence. We do those things, I believe we bring our economy back, and we assure a strong and secure future, both with Homeland Security and with national security.
All right, that is going to be the final word from Congressman Rob Wittman. If you're in the 1st Congressional District, you want to get out there tomorrow and vote to re-elect Rob Wittman to the United States Congress. He's also chairman Readiness Subcommittee, one of the most important subcommittees in the House of Representatives, especially with everything going on now. Rob, if people want to get involved with your campaign in the final day, or they want to know where their polling places are, how do they get information?
John, the easiest thing for them to do is to go to www.robwittman.com. That's ROBWITTMAN.com. They get information about our campaign, what they can do to help, and also there's a tab they can go to determine their polling place.
All right, go to RobWittman.com. That's all you need to know. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Tomorrow, good luck.